Let's start you off by welcoming our guest who is seated this morning in the hot seat, Nairobi Senator Edwin Sifuna, as well as Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Movement, is here with us this morning for the first time this year. Edwin Sifuna, good morning.
Good morning and Happy New Year, Ndu.
Happy New Year.
I'm very happy to see that. Well, I was going to say all of you are here, but there's one who isn't. But it's good to see those of you that are here, City.
Yes.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, brother. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you, Bana.
Yes.
You're well?
I'm well. I'm very well.
Good.
Yes,
very
and
good.
Always a pleasure to be here.
Karibu sana.
Asante.
You know,
asante.
what will be, as we keep saying.
Yeah.
And even as we continue to those conversations, let's start off. So, actually, let's welcome you with today's proverb. We've gone to Uganda this week, and City has a thing or two. City, will you welcome?
Yes, the Republic of Uganda is actually a very, very interesting republic. It's landlocked, and the population isn't really far from us. There are around 49 million people in Uganda. Okay, when I say it's interesting, it is precisely that. Did you know that their vice president is a lady? Mm-hmm. She's called Jessica Alupo. Mm-hmm. And most people didn't even know this. They even have a prime minister. The prime minister is called Robina Nabanja. You know, these fellows are progressive.
Robina is also a lady.
I can't be anything else.
I'd be surprised. But okay.
For now, let's just go with the lady, isn't it?
Yeah.
If Robina is listening and tells us, guys, be serious, I'm not a lady.
Thanks.
Robina will tell us. People talk about the Rwenzori Mountains, otherwise known as the Mountains of the Moon. They're actually on the border of Uganda and the DRC. Okay? It's a mountain range. Beautiful mountain range. Everything you hear about Uganda, you can previously say it's beautiful, wonderful, breathtaking. And as I mentioned earlier on in the first hour, one of the unique things about Uganda, they have lions who climb trees, Bana. You know how it is us to go to watch lions and elephants in Mara. Them, you go to watch lions who climb trees. Think of that one.
These Ugandans are forward thinking.
These guys, if they climb trees, I wonder what the chimpanzees do. The proverb. An elephant which kills a rat is not a hero. An elephant which kills a rat is not a hero.
It's not. I agree.
Okay, Senator, how would you interpret that?
I agree that, if you look at the power dynamics between a rat and an elephant, really, those two, there's one that is expected to do greater things than the other. And for you to trample upon small things and small people, it doesn't make you a hero. I agree wholeheartedly. But I also wanted to say there's a reason why we don't know Uganda's deputy president. Yes.
What's the reason?
Because one person has gone and made himself the only thing about Uganda. So in the power structure of Uganda, really, nobody cares who is the prime minister or the deputy or any other position, because we only know Museveni.
Okay, because the others don't really have sway.
No, they don't. They don't.
Maybe the general, Mohozi the son.
Maybe Mohozi, yes.
Well, okay. Speaking about power structures and looking at how things change, I think that forms the basis for, what some of the things that we're talking about today. Things seem to have changed significantly since the last time you were in this room. That doesn't mean that your mouth has been shut. You've been saying things, and you've been, interrogating certain situations, but we're looking at a changing political tide. Whatever you want to say, it doesn't matter. It is changing. We're looking at the power dynamics shifting quite some, but then we want to ask the question, what do we see happening? A new government came into place 2.5 years ago, and now we see that what would be the opposition is firmly within government. You, as have always been quite clear about the position that ODM sat with. Has that changed?
No, my position has remained the same. I think for me the biggest political change we have experienced in the past year and a half is the realization by Mwananchi that they are more powerful than the leaders. I think for me, that is the thing that gives me the greatest pride. For a very long time, we in the elected leadership have held ourselves out as being more knowledgeable, more superior to the people. But after June 25th, Kenyans realize that they are very powerful, and all of these people who are prancing and beating their chests, they know deep inside that they can be gotten to. I think that was the biggest political change for me, and I'm extremely proud to be a Kenyan who lives in a country where the people know that they are more powerful than the elected leadership. So that even when you hear some of the statements coming from the leaders, my view is that these people are very afraid. If you look at the pronouncements of the president and the people around his circles, those are people who are afraid. The fear that has struck them because they have realized that there's very little time left to change those political tides that you speak about, and they are speaking from a position of fear. So when you hear people threaten to top up the votes, because they are aware that the votes will not they will not meet the threshold required for him to get a second term. So they are actually talking about now openly schemes to steal the election, which is why I am extremely encouraged, because when you hear that, you know for a fact that they also know. When you hear Farah Maalim insulting the public and the president does not say anything in terms of reprimanding them or bringing them back to their senses or to their line, you know they know.
Do you think, because you operate obviously within the same circles.
Yes.
Do you think they believe the things that they are actually saying? Because if they do, and I think it is beyond just changing political tides, it is changing and perhaps scary political tides. If folks who are saying the things that they are saying, and they are in the same circles now, whereby there was an opposition, and I say that deliberately, whereby there was an opposition, but all of these people are now in the same room, drinking the same coffee, doing the same thing, and we hear some of these statements that we're hearing. Do they believe the things that they say, or are they saying them to
in fairness, these statements are not new. If you remember the conversation around the finance bill of 2023, the finance bill of 2024, this language is not new. It has not been brought about by a few of members of the opposition joining government. The wapende wasipende language was there. I remember during that conversation, people like Silvana Sosoro, who is still the majority whip, telling Kenyans that it doesn't matter how much noise you make, we will not change even a comma. But after the shift, the political shift that has happened, they know that they are living on borrowed time. And Kenyans are just sitting there watching them, because you cannot scare anyone. You cannot scare anyone, because if the government was a government that was confident in its ability to convince people to give it another term, they would be speaking about the things that they have done in the period between the election and now that guarantees that re-election. They would be telling us the kilometers of road they have tarmacked, the number of jobs,
hospitals they've built,
houses they've built. But they know, because as I've said, this particular time in this country, we want to talk about our software. It doesn't matter how many roads you build. If you are going to abduct people for just criticizing you or depicting you as a dead person, then that is the elephant crushing the rat that that city was talking about. We want to deal with the software issues in this country. People want to live in a free society. People want proper democracy where there is freedom of media, there's freedom of expression, and that you will not be punished for having a different opinion from those in power. So when you hear those statements, in fact, Kenyans should be very confident now that they have these people by the, I don't know if I can say it.
The short and curly.
By the short and curly.
It's still 7:20.
It's a family show.
Now, you've said before that the president cannot take care of Kenyans.
Yes.
And that he has lost Kenyans.
Yes.
At what point did he get it wrong? And what will it take for him to get Kenyans back? Ama imeenda.
You know, I mean, it has been a process. It has been a process. It began with the finance bill in 2023. In fact, after they were elected, you know, the way in which you speak to the people who are your bosses, it really matters. And the constitutional principles that dictate that you must listen to us. At the end of the day, if you look at Article 73, 74, 75 under our constitution, these leadership positions are not a kingship. It is not for you to come and now walk on our heads.
We are not a monarchy.
Correct. We are not a monarchy. If it requires that you listen to the people, you cannot talk to us in the manner in which they were talking to us in 2023. I remember when we were in the streets in 2023, trying to discuss questions about the cost of living, and we were brutalized. A proper one. A proper one. These guys, sometimes I hear these Latter-day Saints speaking about these freedoms. Yeah. It is good to have a Damascus moment, but we must also remind you that you tried to kill us here in Kware. Yeah. Hey, that was you waking up at 5 a.m. going to your office saying, hey, let's see who will come in the streets and talking about the final solution.
And we'll deal with them.
If the final solution, City, you know what that means.
It means you and your maker will.
Correct, yes. So that is where it began. And they totally lost it when the crescendo of public outcry became even louder, but the leadership remained tone deaf. And I remember saying one time that if you insist on playing deaf, we will slap those ears until you listen to us. Yes. And I feel that is exactly what Kenyans did to remove the wax from their ears. And it won't matter, because for me, I'm very clear that the most important factor in politics and in leadership is the people. For as long as you've left the people behind, it doesn't matter how many leaders you have around you. I have given the example of our own experience in 2022. We had more party leaders and political parties that we could sit. We had more principles than I could count on my two hands, you know, and we still came up short. So Kenyans should not worry. It doesn't matter how many MPs you see, and some of those even from my own political party, they are saying it openly that they know the cow is dying, but they can see there's still some milk in the udder. They will not let the cow die without with that milk in the udder. So basically, it is the greed of some of these politicians. I see them speaking, and the beauty with ODM, our members across the country, we are a movement of 5 million people. Over registered members. They know all of us. They know the journeymen, they know the traders, they know the fair weather friends, they know people who are there to do business, to do transactions with the small positions that you've been given. You call yourself a chairman of a county, but all you do is to trade with that position. People know all of us.
Do you think that those individuals that they know will remain the last men standing, as it were?
What?
Will they?
Everybody. In fact, if you speak to the ordinary members of ODM, they know the people who understand that we have been given an assignment. In fact, those of us at the national leadership have a greater responsibility than some of these members you hear making noise here, because it's like in African culture, your father has gone away to look for something, and he has left the homestead in certain hands. It will be my biggest loss if my father comes back after handing the homestead in my hands, and then he comes back, he finds his wife, one of his wives left. I sold all his cows. He has no place to put his head because I sold the home. I mean, that responsibility on me as SG of ODM is greater than the responsibility that is on, say, some of these elected members that you hear making noise because over the Christmas period, the president gave them employment letters for TSC, 10 of them, to employ their cronies. We want to build a country where the TSC does not give letters of employment to members of parliament. No. There should be a proper meritocracy that everybody who's qualified to be employed at TSC has a way of accessing these employment opportunities. So all of Sifuna's friends, because I have been clear in my mind that ODM is a party that exists to compete with power with all other political parties, including UDA. My relatives did not get employment letters for TSC.
Right.
But it is okay. Some of these young people have waited for 8 years. I am sure they can wait for 2 more years.
For 2 more years.
And then we build a country of meritocracy where you don't need to know Sifuna to access those opportunities that they are dishing out through these members of parliament. So the level of deceit that is in our politics is shocking to some of us, and we want to put an end to this culture, because when you hear those members talking, some of them you are called to State House for as low as 100,000 shillings. That is money I can give Ruto myself. Yeah. It's true.
Okay.
As a member of parliament, you know how much money I earn.
Yeah.
It is possible for me to give Ruto a loan of 100,000 shillings.
If he needs
you can't,
if
he's in a fix, he can call me.
So are we saying essentially, and then what would the consequences be? That if some folks have flown the coop for this thing that we are talking about, you're a little bit more money in the hands, because we know, I mean, the members of parliament who sat in that chair and told us, yes, we know that money changes hands for certain things. We know, you know. But if we're saying that folks have flown the coop when daddy's not around, essentially, then what does that portend when we are talking about a party, essentially, that is supposed to keep government and power in check when it is on the opposition side?
But that's what I want to persuade you, that in fact the party is not these characters that you see making noise in funerals and church services, praising the president and singing his hymns. That is not the party. ODM as a party, as I've told you, is a party of registered membership of over 5 million people. In parliament alone, there is 86 members in the National Assembly. There is 20 of us in the Senate. So there is one person in the Senate who is decided to become a court jester because he was lied to that he would be given some money to do a road in his county. Up to today, that road has not been done. And the truth of the matter is, you don't need to prostrate yourself before the head of state for your people to get development, because we all pay taxes.
Right,
in the National Assembly, we have 86 members. Now we are 83 because there is 3 pending by-elections, including one nominee seat. But out of those 83, the characters you hear in the news every day saying, oh, tutakufa na rais tuko hapo, there are no more than 5 people. So that tells you that it is not the party. There's people who are you know, what do they say, City? That if you can't stand by your values and your principles when they're being tested, it means they're just hobbies. They are not values. And there's people who, as Kiraitu would say, were too willing. You know, there's a story in the village of a girl who's waiting for suitors. And even if you pass by their homestead and you just happen to brush the fence,
it's over.
You hear her saying, wewe, kuja tu ongea na baba yangu, wacha kupita huko kwa barabara. Those are the kinds of characters you see here. Because they were
saying,
almost
Edwin,
too eager to milk this cow before it dies.
Edwin, are you saying that as a party, or the party leader of ODM did not endorse the movement of these individuals to join the government, that they went on their own will?
You see, there is something about the political arrangement currently, and it has been explained very well by Raila Odinga himself. As a foremost Democrat, somebody who believes in change of power through democratic means, there was fear amongst the political elite that if things went the way they were going in June of 24, nobody could guarantee the result or the outcome of that particular process, and whether we would even have a democracy to speak about.
We don't have a country.
Or a country indeed, city. So that the move to allow some of these people to join government was seen as a means of stabilizing the political situation. The democratic state, stabilizing the state as a democratic entity, so that we get an opportunity to kick out President Ruto in a proper forum at proper elections, as democracy dictates. That is the only explanation. And indeed, it does make sense, because at some point, everybody was worried about how this thing would pan out. And examples were given of the situation in places like Sudan, what happened with Egypt. And there was no one, even you, City, could not guarantee us that you knew the outcome of that particular process.
Nobody knew.
Yeah, and immediately we had the army on the streets. I mean, it spooked everyone. You don't know those people.
Yes.
You don't know those people. Maybe in the next 20, 30 years, we would be speaking of Kenya in the terms of other countries that we've seen lose it completely. This democracy is a precious thing. And this is why many of us who believe in it will do whatever it takes to ensure that we remain a democratic state, and that when the opportunity comes, which is why I'm very happy with Kenyans right now. Kenyans are just looking at all of us. They are just looking at Oscar Sudi prancing around. They can hear what Farah Maalim is saying. They know they are afraid. They know they are afraid. And the day the ballot is put in our hands like this, people will go home en masse.
But you see the thing that I find strange, though. I can understand what you're saying. You have a critical situation, and you need all hands on deck.
Mm-hmm.
But surely, must they speak the way they speak in support of a government that clearly isn't serving the interests of its citizens?
No, they mustn't. And in fact, one of the questions I've asked, and I'll keep asking, is how is it that it's only those CSs who came from ODM that have visibility? You know, some of us, if the Minister for Water walked here, I wouldn't know who that person is. I don't even know his name or her name. I don't know who those people are. Where are these other CSAs who came from UDA? Why don't they speak about 2027 in the terms like the way these 4 or 2? In fact, these days it is not all of them. It's just 2 guys.
Hazard a guess. Why would that be? Hazard a guess.
That's what I'm wondering. I keep asking myself, what is so special about these individuals that they are the only ones? And I have been in meetings because there was a point at which the leadership of the party thought that they were going overboard. And they were called in our presence as the Central Committee and told, first of all, you do not have power or authority to speak on behalf of either the Luos, your respective tribes, or the Luyas, or the people of the coast, or indeed the party. If you look at the constitution of ODM, the leadership is clear who can initiate even conversations about forming coalitions, and it has been done before. So they were told to stop making these sycophantic statements. But I don't know what happens to people when they are given the microphone in the presence of some of these leaders. You can just see somebody who looks giddy and overwhelmed, like some.
When thousands of people are listening,
that's what
to
I'm
you
wondering.
And you're the one with the soul voice, and everybody.
That's what I'm wondering.
Human nature will.
That's
take
what I'm
over.
wondering. I mean, you need to contain your excitement. That's the point. I don't think there is a room in this world that if I were put in and asked to speak, I would be so overwhelmed as to forget myself and the values that I stand for.
You speak because you haven't gotten that position.
No. Let me tell you. Some of them, I understand that because essentially Ruto is now their boss. He's the president. He's their boss. Some of them are just keen on keeping their jobs and as long as possible. So they feel like they are overcompensating for certain.
To remain relevant.
Yes.
Our guest this hour is Nairobi is Senator Edwin Sifuna as well, and he is the Secretary General of the Orange Democratic Movement, having a conversation about changing political tides, what to expect for Kenya moving forward into the next 2 years when another election is bound to take place, having conversations about changing political tides and what exactly it does mean. So I think that things have happened, Edwin, in the country over the last 1 year.
Yeah.
And usually we look at the trigger of this kind of change really being the protest that took place in June. And certain things happened.
Yeah.
We hear things. We hear them, but if we listen very carefully, we are understanding now that there is dissatisfaction, not just from Kenyans, but there is dissatisfaction in political circles where individuals are saying things, but we can't seem to hear what they're saying. That there's dissatisfaction in governance, there's dissatisfaction in leadership, there is fear that there's a possibility that you may not come back as an individual. And this all plays in the politics that we see today. What are Kenyans to do at this point when you see and you hear the things that are happening? Abductions taking place, service delivery falling through the cracks. The head of the PDU just the other day said, well, I'm not going to do this anymore. I will not be able to operate where there's this kind of political turmoil taking place. What's the panacea to this?
Well, I think, as I've said, I think Kenyans are just biding their time. That we have come to a place where even members of cabinet themselves, they're coming out to speak and say the country is going in a wrong direction. You just put in context the things that Justin Muturi said. It is quite shocking to hear some of the people criticizing him and saying, collective responsibility and other things. Where was the collective responsibility when a decision was being made to go after his child. Even here at Standard Group, you're a family. City, if you were to receive instructions to go adversely against Ndu, at the very minimum, you will say, no, that's my colleague. And you cannot fault Muturi for coming out to say these things, because all of us have parental instinct. I think many of us, I'm sure if you are parents here, our children is where we draw the line. I would absolutely go to war for my children. That is just a parental instinct. I have seen even in the animal kingdom. You will see a small bird fighting off a big snake because it's coming for its eggs. That is just maternal and parental instinct.
But it would be immediate. It would be immediate.
It would be immediate.
It would be immediate, would it not?
It would be immediate, and even in the hours following that abduction, I think there was proper outrage that was expressed that even a member of the cabinet was not safe. And this is what we keep repeating, that you need to build a country that works for everyone. If a member of the cabinet, their children can be abducted the way that his son was abducted, nobody is safe. I mean, what we have turned our country into a laughingstock. We are being compared and spoken of in terms similar to countries that we shouldn't be compared to. And number two, he has confirmed something that we have been saying all along. There is no way the head of state can tell the country that he doesn't know who's doing these things. So if you go to the president, and luckily for Muturi, he has access to him, and tell him, hey bro, release my son. Sure. And he makes one phone call and indeed the kid is released. That tells you the person doing it. I have said it before, that the person with the power and the person saying he can stop things from happening is the person doing it.
I have to ask you this. That you talk about the bird and the snake, and I love that analogy because the bird would not wait. Seeing the snake is attacking its children in that moment would send the alarm and tell people, hey guys, there's something going on here. Do what it can do to save its young from being attacked by the snake, right? And I think this is also another problem that Kenyans are seeing today, that we hear a lot of after the fact speech. Whether it is immediate former deputy president Rigathi Gachagua telling us all of these things that he saw happening in government and didn't say a word about them until he was on the out. So then when you hear someone, Cabinet Secretary Justin Muturi, speaking in the way that he was speaking, having his son released took 2 days. Right? But the crux of it was when he went to see the president, according to the words that he spoke to, he told us yesterday. When he went to see the president and said, hey, I've spoken to IG of police, I've spoken to DCI, I've spoken to NIS, I've spoken to Interior PS, I've spoken to the Interior CS himself. Nobody has told me anything. President picked up the phone, calls NIS, released. We've not heard anything about this until 7 months later.
But you have to put it.
And this is my question. In as much as yes, it is a harrowing situation for a parent.
Yes.
But when we play it against the political stage here, and Kenyans are saying these are the things that we have been complaining every day for the last I don't know how long. If you had spoken up earlier, it would have helped our case.
In his defense, when we speak about the bird and the snake situation, at that particular point in time, your parental instinct is to secure your child first.
Right.
And don't forget that even the statement that he gave yesterday was upon invitation from the DCI. So all those frantic phone calls he was saying, that is now the bird fighting the snake to secure its loved one. But every person has a responsibility to speak out in their own time about the things that are happening in this country. And we have gotten to a place where these things are escalating. It is better late than never. I would never fault him for choosing to speak now. Because at the end of the day, he is advancing the cause of freedom and democracy in this country by calling out all these things and shedding light to some of these things that we didn't know.
Isn't it rather convenient?
It doesn't matter, City, because also you must know that there are certain things that happen that trigger you. For instance, with that knowledge, you are seated somewhere, maybe having a cup of coffee, and you see the person who you went to call for the release of your son saying he is not aware of who is doing these things. You can be triggered and you say, now this is just too much. Can I tell the country that in fact this is the guy who got my son released? So there is those who would criticize him and say he would have spoken out earlier. But I am just happy that Kenyans are speaking out. And it doesn't matter the consequence.
It isn't just criticism, really.
Yeah.
It is looking at what it is that we see happening in the country from the broad perspective of everything that is happening.
Yes.
For instance, we have an immediate former deputy president who is now a one-man opposition party. Okay? He utters things and says things. You actually wonder, is this the same person who was here at this particular point in time?
Yes. Now, you can point out his hypocrisy. There is no problem with that. But, there's a law of double jeopardy.
Yes.
Rigathi Gachagua has already been punished for his sins.
You can't.
He was, yes, absolutely.
Charge him a second time.
You can't charge him a second time. I voted to impeach him for his sins. So he has already paid his price. He is free to speak about other things now. And I would take a latter day saint over a current day sinner. Because if he is the person speaking the language of freedom now, it's okay. Because even Paul, when he was Saul, he was the biggest persecutor of Christians. Yes. But he now became the biggest seller of the gospel of Christ. It is allowed to have your Damascus moment.
So
you can remind him.
So are you saying that
Yes.
it's possible that the folks who are on the in,
Yes.
right, not on the out, on
Yes.
the in today,
Yeah.
know the sins that are being committed
Yes.
by government and leadership,
Yeah.
are aware of the negative, direction in which things are going,
Yes.
but because they want to protect themselves,
Yeah.
perhaps they want to continue pursuing political expediency, are going to remain mum. In the event that something should happen that would adversely affect their position, is when we will hear them saying, actually, you know what, in there, that thing that's boiling is actually a cesspot of a mess. We are giving them permission
Again,
to be quiet.
how convenient.
Is it not convenient?
Yeah, because again, SG, you've just told us right now that at that point when the immediate former deputy president was waking up at 5 a.m. Making sure that they deal with the situation. Yes. At that point, all that was happening was okay. But now he is the same person who's saying what is being done to Kenyans right now is wrong. Isn't that doublespeak?
That's what I'm saying. It is okay to call out his hypocrisy. Personally, I don't care what political ends he's chasing or pursuing, for as long as he's saying the right things. Personally, I don't care what your political motivation is if you are helping us to stop abductions in this country.
I agree.
To build a society where we're all free. We know who he is. We will remind him every single day that he is no saint. But he has paid for his sins.
Your point is a valid one. Let me extend it further. Let us say today, for instance, that UDA and ODA and ODM were to sign some agreement where they actually merge. This is a hypothetical situation.
Yes.
With the position you hold, would you comfortably, you're the SG, would you comfortably sign off on such an agreement?
Now, this is a bridge that I have said we will cross when we get there. Because me personally, the way that I read the political situation, the path to victory for ODM has never been clearer. Because as we have said, this party exists to also pursue power. And we believe that we are better people. At the end of the day, we actually think that we are good people. There are things that I believe honestly would not be happening in an ODM government. It is very doubtful that if you look at the leadership of ODM, and our history is there, the history of the leadership of the party is there. We are people who you would not say are likely to be trampling upon the rights. In fact, we are the people who would more easily breathe life into this constitution than any other person.
I wish you'd speak of yourself as an individual.
This is. I lead a political party, and I sit with these people. I know them, and their history is known.
Edwin, you sat with the very same people who are now in government. Would you have foreseen that when they got these positions, they would do what they are doing and say the things they're saying now?
That's what I'm saying. The political party that I lead is a party of 5 million people.
Yes.
The vast majority of the membership of ODM believe in the values of this party. And if we believe in the values of this party as a majority, these few people who are likely to fall off the way are not going to influence the way the party behaves. So my view is this, City. There will never be a greater opportunity for ODM to form government than what I see right now. Because it is widely acknowledged across the country that the president has lost so much ground. It is going to be impossible for him to make up that ground. If you look at the number of votes that came from just central Kenya alone, for instance, and put it against the fact that he was declared president by just a margin of 200,000.
200,000.
Yeah.
All ODM needs to do, all Azimio needs to do, is to retain its constituencies. We just need to stick together. And when the ballot comes, let us be the ones to assure Kenyans that we will deal with the software issues. We will deal with the Article 10 values of transparency, of democracy, of participation of the people, listening to the people. If we do that, we have a very clear chance of forming government. So the question I ask myself is, with that clarity, why would anyone want to yoke themselves with a very unpopular president? It is a mistake that I personally, as SG, would not want the party to make.
But SG, how do you deal with what Kenyans are saying right now, that Raila Odinga sold us by deciding to send his troops to work with the president who has let us down? How do you deal with the fact that Kenyans say Raila Odinga himself has
That's
let
what I'm
them
doing
down?
on this show. I mean, every single day, we have a responsibility as a leadership of a party to explain our actions.
Right.
One of the things that I have said on this very show is that there will never be a day when you look for me and I'm unavailable. Because your taxes support my political party. ODM is a publicly funded political organization. We have a responsibility to explain ourselves to the public. And we try as much as possible. As a spokesperson of a party, I am always trying to explain the position of the party. I have said here, the thinking behind the decision to show up the government was to protect the democratic state. I know that it is a difficult job to do because we have been in this position before. In 2022, by all accounts, we also suffered the same burden of trying to extricate ourselves from our association with the Jubilee regime, which was also very unpopular at the time. And it is that is the nature of politics. You have to keep constantly explaining yourself. You might persuade two, you might persuade one, you might not persuade anyone. But at the end of the day, I feel that responsibility as SG to continue to explain and to tell Kenyans that, in fact, we have not lost our values as a party, as a political party. This is why we say, if something happens that is not in consonance with what we believe in, we have still a responsibility to call it out. And you have seen the leadership of the party do it, even in the presence of the president himself. Raila Odinga in, I think it was Siaya. He was there with the president and told him to his face that this is not something we want to see happening in our country. We don't want to go back to the dark days where you could actually be abducted and just held in comunicado in detention without trial. We have to call out these things. And when we do those things, it is out of our responsibility as a political opposition, political party, to point out the wrong things that are happening.
Help Kenyans to understand what they saw visually.
Yes.
Right? When there was support that was given directly to Raila Odinga, because these are things that you have to, because when you see ODM, you think it's Raila Odinga, it's Edwin Sifuna, and these is what you're pushing in this position, being in the opposition.
Yes.
So now help Kenyans understand when they saw the outright support from the president for Raila Odinga's bid for the AUC, number one. When we saw that there were generals from the ODM party who were made cabinet secretaries, when we saw that there was the constant, camaraderie that now happened, and you heard the things that was happening. You live in Kenya, your ears are open, you hear, and they say, well, everything that Raila has done for the last 20 years now has been put and flushed down the loo. Yes. Because what have you done is that you've basically gotten in bed again with the very people that you swore you would never. Help Kenyans understand what that meant when they saw that, vis-a-vis what you're saying now, that you still have a responsibility as a party.
Yeah, I think I can understand the confusion. For the part about the president's support for Raila's AUC bid, you can ask the president himself. Because me personally, I have seen, like right now, my party leader was in Zimbabwe. He's taken his campaign individually. He has gone to all these heads of state alone. I have not seen him there with Ruto.
Yes.
They have appeared at a few events together, but by and large, Raila has run his own campaign. And for whatever support that has come from government or the state, it is because Raila is Kenya's candidate. And for the details, you can ask the president. I have explained the question of the generals that you speak about joining government. You see, ODM is a very bold party. We are not people to shy away. If we are in a relationship with you, we will boldly proclaim that we are in a relationship with you, because that is a choice that we have made.
Right.
We are not embarrassed when we are in relationships with people. I mean, as I've given you an example, in the last election, we signed agreements with 26 political parties. As SG of ODM, I was there signing those things on behalf of the party. If an agreement exists, we will not be shy. if it is an illicit association, then you can't ask the SG of ODM to speak about illicit affairs.
Are you saying
so?
That?
What I am saying is this: I have explained the reason why these 4 individuals were seconded to government.
You have
to protect the democratic state. And I have said, when the time comes, ODM as a political party will be in competition with all these other political parties to win power, because we also want to govern this country. That is why political parties exist. So until and unless you get to that point where you are saying you have merged or you have signed a document, then you really can't impose this relationship on us. There is also a lot of disingenuity in how people address us. And the good thing is that I have been SG of this party for 7 years. ODM as a political party is not measured on the same standards as any other political party. And we understand why, because we have projected ourselves as being different and better than all these other people. So I expect these questions to be asked of us. But I am telling you, the sustenance of a democratic state is a bigger deal than these things that we are discussing here. Because none of you here can have guaranteed us an outcome that was predictable from the way the country was going. So we understand. I mean, I said we have been in this situation before, but we have that responsibility to ascertain, to explain to the public what is happening and what we are doing and where we're going, because that is a responsibility to have as a leadership.
And when the public tells you clearly what it is they think about the decisions that you made, what then do you do about it beyond explaining? Because what you're doing now is explaining it.
Yes.
And you're an excellent apologist.
So no, it's not about being an apologist, City. The foremost responsibility of the SG is to actually combat propaganda that is detrimental to the interest of a party. If you want to know whether a party has lost its path, is when it departs from its own values. If ODM today were to stand up and say, oh yes, we sanction the abductions of people, or that we don't care about media freedom, or you can shut down media stations if you want, or you can speak the way that people like Farah Maalim are speaking to the public, or you can say that you can actually... Can ODM stand up and support a person or a party that says even if the votes don't count, if they are not enough, we can top them up? Can ODM stand for that? Look at us from the perspective of whenever there are issues that affect Mwananchi, has the party derogated from its duty? It hasn't, because throughout this entire relationship, ODM has maintained its stance on the values that we believe in.
Edwin, when you were in bed with the Jubilee government, one of the complaints that the citizenry had for the longest time was that you were silent on issues that previously you were very loud about as a party.
That complaint was there. Can that complaint be made right now?
No, because you have been at the forefront of ensuring that complaint cannot be validated, because you speak. But so
who else do you want to speak? I'm the party spokesperson.
Yes. I'm in agreement. I'm simply saying that because you speak, you represent the party. But when we look at members, because Mbadi, Wandai, Joho, and Oparanya, are they not still members of ODM?
That's what I'm telling you. I have said it and I'll repeat it here. ODM is a movement of over 5 million people. If you want to know the position of the party, we had a meeting of the Central Committee just recently. The position of the party was given. I read those resolutions. Those are not Sifuna's resolutions. They are resolutions of ODM. That is who we are. It was followed up even just yesterday by another statement from the acting party leader, Anyang' Nyong'o. It depends on what you choose to hear. And I know, City, because
apart from hearing, I see you are a party who has certain values, but you are a party who will also justify when you water down what seemed to have been a delightful movement to remove this particular government in power, and you say it was to safeguard democracy.
Here's the one thing you have to understand, because you see, I have been in this business for a long time. The voices that validate your view are the ones that you give prominence. The voices that try to explain, like mine, will be played down and say, oh, but so-and-so said so-and-so. Who are those people? Who are those people in the context of the leadership of a political party? We have 5 million members, and I wish sometimes you open your phone lines to just members of ODM from across the country, because I, as SG, have a national network. I speak to Dickson Manyara, who's the chairman of ODM in Nyandarua. Dickson Manyara, when we were running in 2022, He was the same person calling me and telling me, Sifuna, in Nyandarua, we are not going to get the votes these characters are telling you we are going to get. Today, if he calls me, he tells me this association that is breeding between ODM and UDA is going to hurt us because on the ground, nobody is going to vote UDA. I listened to Kaseme from Tana River. When I call him and ask him, and these people will give you an objective view. I call the chairman, Torome in Narok, and he tells me, Sifuna, wa Masai hii vitu ya Ruto wamekataa. So I have a global view as opposed to a member of parliament from one constituency who only talks to his relatives. You know, he only speaks to his kinsmen. He was elected by one community, one tribe. He has no clue where Tana River ODM office is. He has no idea. Yeah. So for me, City, he will allow me to still be the voice of ODM. If for as long as I am the SG of this party, I will speak as SG of the party and give the true position on where we are as a political party.
Edwin, as we speak at the moment now, there's a big issue, the elephant in the room. IEBC is not in place.
Absolutely.
And with that, you have actually addressed that. And even calling upon the judiciary to do its bit.
Yeah.
Why is it taking so long?
Now, you see, the beauty with these conversations is we are on record. It is true that there is delay in reconstitution of IEBC. There are some dark forces who have decided to stall this process. Because as we speak right now, the reason why the panel is not in place is because there's a court order that was obtained from a very notorious court in Kiambu, challenging the process. I have done my bit as a leader of a political party and as a senator. When the bills came through parliament, they were processed. I voted for the bills to pass. They were assented to. But then there are forces that are unseen that are pushing this hand to make sure that we don't have a panel in place. I have seen some people online saying, oh, it is the problem is not Azimio. The problem is not Azimio. The problem is there is a court order there. And ODM is the biggest loser in the current state of affairs. Because as I told you, we have 3 vacant slots in the National Assembly alone. And if you remember the clamor around the finance bill of 2024, I remember Kenyans on social media telling me, Sifuna, you must deliver to us all the 86 members of ODM to vote against this thing. Now, if there's a critical vote right now, those 3 votes would make a big difference for Kenyans.
Okay.
So we would like that the judiciary dispenses with these cases quickly so that we can have the panel in place and we have an IEBC.
Okay.
Yeah.
Time does run out when you're having fun, they say. These conversations must continue. Edwin Sifuna, Secretary General of ODM and Nairobi County Senator, thank you for being here. Always a pleasure to have you here. The conversations must continue. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.